Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Behavior Evolution Scriptures Revelation. We're more than halfway through Revelation now, and in our last episode, we were introduced to these 7 angels that were carrying 7 bowls full of the undiluted wrath, rage, fury of Yahusha. All the fury that's been building up since the beginning is going to be poured out on this planet. So for anybody who's wondering, where is he? Why does he let this happen and why does he let that happen? Rest assured, the pain that you feel, the judgment you go through from Yahusha, the pain, the flogging, the chastisement is nothing compared to what's going to come on this world who does not respond to him at all. So let's look and go into these judgments. The 7 bowls of Yahusha's undiluted rage. Revelation 16, which is what we're starting today, is highly emotional, drenched in drama and utterly terrifying in its prophecy of what lies ahead. Remember in our last chapter, John set the scene like this. I saw another wonder in heaven, and it was truly amazing. There were 7 angels bringing the last 7 plagues to finish all of Yahusha's wrath, to finish it. So these plagues of judgment will be the final ones, and no more will happen in all of human history. Yahusha's wrath will be poured out to its fullest. And after that, he has nothing more to say to mankind. What about that? That's the end of it. After that, he's only dealing with his bride, his redeemed. He's got nothing more to say to the world. They'll be destroyed at this point, awaiting a great throne judgment, white throne judgment. Sorry about this picture. There's no such thing as female angels. So, a little bit of a catch up. We're about here, I reckon. Once we start seeing the global population start descending, which it's slowly starting to happen, we'll know that these bowls are happening. Because all the judgments that I believe are happening from these trumpets, I believe they're happening now in various different forms. They're only about 1/3 of the population, though, that they're affecting, and many things are doing that. Once we get to here, though, it's global in its effect, and that's what we're going to see today, these global effects, judgments. Before we start, a little bit of a fun fact. The 21 judgments above, see how it says 21 here? All through Revelation there were 21 judgments. There were 7 started in the seals, then there's another 7 in the trumpets, and there will be 7 in the bowls of wrath. 21, 7 threes are 21, all up. So the 21 judgments above were shadowed by the old temple priests on the very last day of the last feast of the last of the year, last day of the last feast of the year, where they blowed their trumpets 21 times. 3 times 7 is 21 trumpets and plagues. Now, any opportunity the priests got, they would blow their trumpets, generally 7 times. Was their usual ritual at all the feasts, set apart times, Moedim, they would blow their trumpets 7 times. But on the last day of the last feast, which would have been Tabernacles, Sukkot, they blasted their trumpets 7 times, then another 7 times, and another 7 times, making 21 times. So just like there was 7 plus 7 plus 7 judgments, it's all shadowed back in the trumpets. And of course, on that last day, that feast was to signify the end of all things and the coming of the marriage supper of the Lamb. So as is going to happen with these plagues, at the end of it, woohoo. Let's get into this chapter, guys. Revelation 16. Then I heard a loud voice from the heavenly temple saying to the 7 angels, go and pour out the 7 bowls of Yahusha's undiluted wrath onto the earth. Go and do it. Pour out completely, not mildly sprinkle. Pour it all out. Mankind has rejected the outpouring of Yahusha's spirit, so instead they will receive the outpouring of his fury. And pour out Yahuwah's wrath, whenever that was mentioned in the Old Testament or older scriptures, pour out his wrath means not only on those who hate and persecute Yahusha's people, but also his own bridal people who are rebellious and being unclean, living their own way, doing what they want. Anytime in the older scriptures, ancient text, when it speaks about pour out the wrath of Yahuwah, or the wrath of Yahuwah was let out, or whatever went on, it wasn't just about the nations that were persecuting Yisrael or attacking them. It also came on the people of Yisrael themselves who were doing the wrong thing. Keep that in mind if you consider yourself part of the bride. If you're not doing the right thing, these plagues are coming on you too. And they ain't pretty, and they will be global in scope. Remember, Nahum 1:6 says, "Who can stand the heat of Yahuwah's furious rage? For it flashes out like fire and shatters stones." This is what's coming, guys. Here we go. "And the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, causing disgusting, foul, agonizing sores to come all over those who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped his image." We've dealt with this beast in many chapters now, what it is, where it is, the beast, the name, the number, the mark, all of it. It's all a behavior. Let's make it simple. Yes, it comes from Satan. Yes, it was officially established in Babylon. There were 4 beasts in the statue, remember? It all went into Greece, and then it went into Rome in the Roman pontiff situation. It's all there, still happening. But let's not look there. It's in our homes. It's in our bodies. It's a behavior that we need to get out. The beast is in us, and we're going to look at that a bit later. The beast is a behavior. You either behave like he wants or you don't. Let's look at these sores. Agonizing, foul, disgusting sores. Literally an evil, malignant ulcer. A cancerous sore or boil that brings eventual death as a result of the unclean, bad condition of the human blood. That's interesting. The power of Yahushua's blood is what heals us, but look at the condition of the human blood. From it comes disease and sickness and cancerous boils and sores. This plague breaks out on all who choose to behave and live as the world arrogantly declares is right. But Yahushua's people are warned in Revelation 14 not to take on the mark, which is a behavior, of the beast, merely to survive, to buy or sell or whatever. Don't just behave like the beast says just because you need to survive. No, this is where you'll have to endure. Yeah? And I believe Yahushua will protect us and provide for us if we're doing what he wants us to do. If you're going through a hardship, don't just blame the world, the system, demons, whatever. Look at the calamity. Look at the consequences of what's going on. Are you doing what he wants you to do? Are you the reason for your hardship? Face the truth. While one might try to look together, while people try to look together, even civil and polite these days, on the outside, they are harboring dirty desires and sins on the inside. But Yahushua sees the heart and will afflict that person with a highly visible and gross skin disease that essentially marks them as unclean, just like the skin diseases, leprosy of old. Looking at patterns, it's very similar to what would happen if you had a skin disease. What was that called? I forget now, the Hebrew word. But if you had a skin disease, which was many times called leprosy in the camp, you were cast out of the camp. It's contagious, filthy, you can't be around it. So that was the first bowl of wrath. All these weeping, gaping, foul, hideous sores, cancerous cysts, all sorts of things going on in the world. Every second person now has got some form of cancer, haven't they? Then the second angel poured out his bowl onto the sea, and it became like a dead man's blood. And every living creature in the sea died. Now, it didn't just go a red colour like blood. The blood of a dead person becomes a thick and coagulated goo. And this will make extinct every living organism in the oceans and cut the world's food supply to such a low level that billions will starve to death and the world's economy will sink. This is similar to the Exodus plague upon the Egyptians. Recognize that? This is the seas, the oceans, the salt water turns to blood, a thick goo. Nothing can survive in that. There is also, this was really cool, there is also another aspect to this that Jewish believers would have immediately latched onto, and that it's that blood itself was forbidden to be eaten or drunken. And a dead person represented the height of ritual impurity. Not only were you not allowed near a dead body, because you'd be ritually impure, you weren't allowed to drink, eat, have anything to do with blood either. Yeah? So as the salt water became more blood-like, no Torah-obedient Jew would continue fishing in it. And this is because they would consider this contaminated condition of the oceans just like the uncleanness of a corpse. Like this. So that's a big insult to them. It's the height of impurity to them. They wouldn't go near it. Wouldn't even if the fish came from it, no, wouldn't eat it. It's contaminated. So that was the second angel. The second bowl, pollution, blood of the seas. Then the third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers. We're talking fresh water now. Rivers and streams and all other waterways, and they all became blood. And this is kind of a answer. We'll read this bit first. Then I heard the angel of the waters, the angel that poured out this bowl. This angel said to Yahusha, yes, you are the set apart one, who is and who always was. You are right in these judgments you've made. These people have spilled the blood of your chosen people and your prophets. So now you've given them all blood to drink. And this is what they deserve. This is like an eye for eye, tooth for tooth situation. Lexo talionis, or whatever they call it in Hebrew. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth type of legislation, judgment. And back in seal number 5, the 7 seals, remember number 5? The martyrs are standing under the altar. When will you avenge us? We've been killed for your name, for your blood. When will you avenge us? Look at this filthy, hideous world. Look what they're doing. When will you do something about this? When will you act? This is an answer to that cry, an answer to that prayer. Finally, Yahusha stood up and these bowls are being poured out. So they shed, remember he just said here, they shed the blood of the saints and prophets. You have given them blood to drink. The altar responded, true and just are your judgments. So this angel is saying, yes, what's going on here is right. About damn time. These people deserve this. They've been doing whatever they want for millennia now, killing your prophets, killing people that believe in you, follow you, shedding innocent blood. Now they got blood to drink. This angel speaks of revenge and justice, eye for an eye style, not the fluffy marshmallow style that turns the other cheek and loves his enemies, is it? So here we find that this fearful principle of Yahuwah's justice system remains unchanged. Just as he does not change. He didn't establish all these eye for eye, tooth for tooth laws in the older scriptures, in the patterns, in the shadows. He didn't establish all that for nothing. He doesn't change. So just because it doesn't look like he may be doing that today, in this day and age, he is. He is. Just look at what's going on with the wars and famines and the starvation, and all those people worship idols. Is he really not acting? So, this angel's going, yeah, you get him. And I heard a voice from the altar say, yes, Yahuwah Al Shaddai, which is mighty Elohim of the mountain, sufficient strength, all that stuff. Your judgments are right and just. Your judgments are right and just. Those words aren't just, he's not saying right and just in some cosmic fuzzy sense. I agree. No, he's saying it in a judicial, legal sense. Taking it way back to the patterns again in the Torah. In a judicial sense. For justice can only be defined within the divine laws given to Moses. That's what right and wrong is. The laws of Moses, the divine laws, the Torah instructions tell us what right and wrong is. So, which is upheld. So since this eye for eye is Yahuwah's justice system, then if Yahusha did not judge the world, the wicked world, like the way he is now, it would not be just, it would not be right, and he would actually be violating his own laws, because his laws are lex talionis, which is eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, proportionary justice. The punishment should suit the crime, that sort of thing. So if he doesn't judge the world like this, he's actually violating his own laws, isn't he? The world has done this, so they will reap this consequence, this judgment. And this was cool. The most offensive and insulting abomination to Yahusha, ever since the beginning, is blood and death. Think about it. No blood, no death in the garden. It's the opposite to who he is. He's light. He's life. There's no death in him. He never planned for any of that. He didn't want it. So the most offensive thing to him is death, and certainly bloodshed. Carrying the most contagious and uncleanliness there is to him, like a divine radiation. It's death. It's death. You can't go near it. So by causing not only foul skin infections, but now the whole world's oceans and waterways and everything it touches to be abominably unclean, like a dead person's blood, Yahusha has marked men and women with perhaps the harshest, most widespread judgment since the flood. He's literally made them the most abominable thing that they can't be anywhere near him. It's the most hideous thing to him, death and disease and bloodshed. No. And he's just turned them all into it. All their waterways, all their oceans, everything that they eat, touch, everything is covered with blood. So remember, all these plagues are global in scope. So clearly we haven't seen that happen yet. We might say, people put up pictures. Look, the ocean's turned red. That lake over there is turned red. We're not talking about it turning red. We're talking about it being like a dead man's blood, thick and gooey. And everything in it dies. Like I said, the trumpets are blowing. We've seen little aspects of this here and there. Oceans dying, oil spills, ships, all sorts of things happening. But we haven't seen it globally. Mankind have chosen to ignore Yahusha's instructions for clean and right behavior, declaring themselves unclean and unfit for deliverance. That's what their behavior has done. By their behavior, they are declaring themselves unclean, fit and unfit for deliverance. So Yahusha is about to pour out global plagues on all the unclean, both in the world and in his bride. So what makes a person unclean? We're going to go into that. If we don't want these plagues to come on us, and remember, judgment starts first at the altar of Yahusha, at the altar of the temple, in the set-apart place. Judgment starts first in the bride, in us. So before the world's going to cop this global judgment, he's judging his bride and cleansing her first, so that she's not unclean. So if we don't want these plagues to come on us, if we don't want to be included with the world in this, we can't have any uncleanness in us. So what does that mean? What makes a person unclean? Remember, the lepers had to yell out, "Unclean, unclean!" Let's look at the Hebrew understanding. If you want to understand what something really is, you've got to look at it in the Hebrew. Then bring it back to today's day and age and abstractly bring it into our behavior. Strong search results for unclean: to be foul, especially in a ceremonial or moral sense, contaminated. Defile yourself, pollute yourself, make self utterly unclean. Foul, defiled, infamous, polluted. This is all words for unclean. Impurity, filthiness. To hold together, something that holds together like a cup, a container. Does that remind you of a carcass? A human body? A lot, as if a potion, a cup, bowl, or cavity. Something that holds something. Is your carcass, your physical body, fleshly temple, whatever you call it, is it full of uncleanliness? Or is it holding, like Yahusha's did, the divinity, the seed, incorruptible seed? What else does unclean mean? Rejection, impurity, especially personal, menstruation, speaking of blood again, or moral, idolatry, incest, filthiness, put apart, be removed, separation, set apart. All these referring to things that made Yisrael unclean and kicked out of the camp. Idolatry, menstruation, blood, all sorts of things, incest. And let's bring it into today's day and age so it really makes sense. Men and women too. Nudity makes you unclean. Literally, especially pudenda, which is genitals. Figuratively, disgrace, blemish, nakedness, shame. Any nudity or sexual behavior outside of a marriage relationship is unclean. It makes you unclean if you view, look, voyeur, watching, pornography, masturbation, all these things, pleasure of the self, the flesh, so putting your mind on yourself, worship of the self, worship of your genitalia, incredible focus where it shouldn't be, will make you stink. Stink, unclean, abominable thing. This is what makes a person unclean. A quasi or apparently sacred person. A male or female temple devotee through prostitution to licentious, which means wrongful sex acts, idolatry, like a sodomite, which is one who does anal sex, unclean. This is talking about the temple prostitutes that did all these. Men and women did it actually. Sodomy, anal sex, men and women did it. The women did it so that they wouldn't get pregnant. And it was the way they worshipped their idols. The pagan priests and priestesses. This is how they would worship. And so, of course, it's totally relevant for today's society because everybody's into this. They're legalizing it. It's now lawful to be in that sort of relationship. Men with men, women with women. You can marry anything you want these days. Your horse, your dog, tree out the back. You can marry yourself. It's complete perversion. Just like the days of Noah, Sodom and Gomorrah. It's happening in the world. That's why we know, based on Matthew 24, that it's about to end. It's about to end. So if you don't want to be included in these plagues, you better become unclean and overcome. So that's the Hebrew understanding of what unclean is. What makes a person, a human being, vessel, unclean. Let's look at some scriptures. 2 Corinthians 6, come out from their midst and be separate, says Yahushua. And do not touch, behave, what is unclean. And I will welcome you openly. The touching of things, dead bodies and, blood and, things like that, not as much of an issue today. You've got hand sanitizer, you've got soap, you've got all sorts of things like that. But what you behave is very relevant. Yeah? So do not behave what is unclean. And I'll welcome you openly. The portal will be open. You won't be blocked. Your prayers will be heard. Isaiah 64, all of us have become as one unclean. And all the good things we do are as filthy rags to you. All of us fade like leaves. And our crookedness, like the wind, has blown us all away. There is no one who calls on your name or stirs himself up to take hold of you. For you have hidden your face from us and have consumed us because of our crookedness. That's relevant for today. Who calls on the name of Yahushua in your neighborhood, in your street, in your business? Anybody interested in the name of Yahushua? To us, it's everything. It's our lifeline, our deliverance. But see, the prophecy is true. Proverbs 30, there are many who are pure in their own eyes, but still not washed from their filthiness. So no matter what they think they are in the world by their philosophies, they're not washed. If they're not washed in the blood of Yahushua, if they haven't been immersed in his name, they're unclean. Jeremiah 13, you all have it coming to you. I've measured it out precisely, all my decrees, because you have forgotten me and embraced the big lie, that so-called mighty one, Baal, which means Lord. People crying out using the word Lord. And I'm not talking about lords and ladies in the royal family. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Lord from the scripture. That's Baal. You're worshipping Baal. Just like Elijah was up against the priests of Baal. That's what Lord is, Baal. You want to play the whore with other deities? So I'm the one who will rip off your clothes, expose and shame you before the watching world. Your obsession with idols, woohooing parties, and perverse behaviour. That's today. You don't care where you do it either, on the hills and the fields. Every time I look, you're off with another slimy partner. Worshipping idols. Oh, Jerusalem, what a sordid life. Is there any hope for you? These older scriptures aren't boring, or look how relevant they are to today. This is how he feels. This was talking about Jerusalem, which he divorced, but it still talks about his bride. Look how his bride behaves, those who have his spirit. If she doesn't get it together, she won't be the bride. Ezekiel 5. So as I live, declares Yahuwah, you have defiled my temple, now our body, with all your detestable idols and abominations, unclean behavior. So I will also withdraw, and my eye will have no pity, and I will not spare you. You have defiled my temple. This is his temple. This temple is being defiled by us. Anything we do that is not Torah and is actually against Torah instruction, looking at nakedness, unclean sexual behavior, all these things, the things we say, the big one as well. It's all idolatry because it's actually serving the enemy and not Yahushua. He hates it. He will not spare you. Isaiah 24, the earth is also polluted by its inhabitants, for they disobey my divine laws, violate my instructions, and broke my everlasting blood covenant I made with them. That's why the earth is polluted. That's why what's happening is happening. Idolatry brings the curse. Matthew 15, this was interesting. What comes out of the mouth comes from the heart, and defiles a person, makes them unclean. For out of the heart comes wicked thoughts and plans, murders, adulteries, whorings, thefts, lies, and abuse. So it's not about what you eat as far as what Yahushua calls food anyway. You don't eat things that he doesn't consider food. So we're not even discussing food laws here. We're talking about what comes out of a person. Their behavior makes them unclean. And more on that subject here, Galatians 5. The behavior of the flesh are well known, which are adulteries, whoring, uncleanness, indecency, idolatry, drug sorcery. Are not all these happening in the world today? Hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, murders, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like, of which I forewarned you, as I said before, that those who behave like this will never inherit the reign of Yahushua. So that's the behavior, the fruits of the flesh. But the fruits, the behaviors of Yahushua's spirit in us is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, and self-control. And there's no laws against anyone behaving them, is there? If you're behaving them, you are living far more righteous and superior to anybody out in the world, and their silly little laws of society, which we're supposed to do, come under the laws of society, because Yahushua put them in place over us, but they're easy compared to having these fruits grow in us. That's why it says there's no laws against anyone behaving them. Those who are Yahushua's have staked the flesh, kill it, throw it on the altar to burn it. With its passions and desires, kill it. So if we're only alive by Yahushua's spirit within us, which we are, then we need to make sure we're behaving as he wants, not being selfish, provoking one another, or envying one another. If it's that spirit that's keeping us alive, then we need to behave these spiritual fruits. So that's just part of we've only done the first 3, I think it was. The first bowl was the sores, leprous wounds, cancerous, all that. Skin disease. That was the first bowl. Second bowl was the oceans turned to blood. Third bowl was the rivers and waterways. Fresh water turns to blood. So we're just going to cover those in this video because there's much more to come. We're going to talk a lot about darkness in our next video. On to the next couple more. The world has been separated for either blessing or judgment. I believe that's happening right now. The harvest is beginning already. The choosing who's who. Wheat, tares, sheep, goats. That kind of thing is happening right now. Yahushua knows who his bride is. He knows who he's working with. So the world's been separated for either blessing or judgment, all based on their behavior. And as we know, nothing good can come from a human without the divine heart operation first. Nothing good can come from it. And so we have our list here. This is what has to happen. If you're new to this and you don't understand, how can I have this Yahushua inside me? You need to repent, believe, cry out to Yahushua to forgive you. You've been living outside of Torah. You've been living away from his instructions, his covenant, blood covenant. You repent and you're forgiven, washed clean in the blood of Yahushua. Then, by obedience, you immerse, ceremonially washed clean in Yahushua's name. And at that moment, a divine operation happens. You get a new heart and a new spirit. He throws out your old heart, your old nature, your old inclinations, old everything. He throws it out. Old heart, old spirit gone. Hard, crusty heart. No one could reach you or talk to you. Throws it out. And you receive the divine spirit of Yahushua within. You get a down payment, a small portion, a seed. An incorruptible seed of eternal life is planted. And what do seeds do? They grow. This seed gives you a portal doorway of communication which opens with Yahushua. You have access to his throne room. You can hear his voice. He can communicate with you and you can communicate with him. You are adopted from the earthly sinful realm into the heavenly kingdom. You might go down into the water and come up wet physically, but spiritually you have just been adopted into the nation of Yisrael, which is a not earthly, not lineage, not bloodline, anything like that. It's spiritual in nature. A spiritual kingdom is coming. A spiritual realm is going to come through the invisible seam when he returns. It's a spiritual Yisrael. I don't mind telling you either. It is a spiritual nation. You are adopted into it. You are separated, anointed, given a change in status to become a royal priest, no matter who you are. Yeshua said, I come for the tax collectors and whores, the down and outs, the low, the base things of this earth. I put my spirit in them and I raise them up, I train them, and they will confound the wise. The base things of this earth will confound the wise. Yahushua plants us, trains us, feeds us, and waters the seed within us for maturity. That seed has to grow. That's the seed that transforms us. And we need to be active participants in that process, feeding ourselves, watering our minds, washing our minds by the water of the word. Bridal priests serve in Yahushua's temple, their body, through gifts and behaviors. After a while, gifts and behaviors, fruits, will come from our body as we activate his word in our lives. And then this is the ultimate here. Not many are in this place. You're enlisted as a last day harvest worker, watching for those who Yahushua has called. Those people have passed all these tests. Those people have overcome, and they are now being used to put their minds on other people. Forget about yourself. Most of us can't get to that place all day, every day, can we? Forget about yourself. Concentrate on him. Worship him. Serve him. You are on the lookout for those that he's called. You're not going out looking for them. You don't have to go out and find the bride. You're waiting for Yahushua to go, that one, that person's. I want you to speak to them. I want you to help them. And that's the old covenant priest there. That's the shadow. And that's what we are to wear when we get up in the morning. So that is enough for today, guys. We're going to be back for our next, part 2 of this chapter on the rest of the bowls next week. Stay strong, guys, and remember, if you're going through pain, heat, pressure, consequences, it's your fault, and you got to face it and see it and change it, because it's all coming on you for a reason. Judgment is happening on you now so that it doesn't have to happen on you like this, what we're looking at now. So love you guys. See you next week.
Black Eyed Peas came to make it hotter. We beat the fire starter, bubbling up just like lava, heated like a sauna, penetrating through your body armor. Rhythmically we massage ya, with hip hop mixed up with samba. So yes, y'all. You know we never stop, we never rest, y'all. The Black Eyed Peas will keep it funky fresh, y'all. And we won't stop until we get y'all, say yeah.
Peter Piper pick peppers, but I rock rhymes. 1, 2, 3, 4, several times. Heavy rotation played by every kind. Radio station blessing every mind. We crossing boundaries like every day. Do Bobby, been the on the bay. We got tab magnification, tab magnify like every day.
So yes, y'all. You know we never stop, we never rest, y'all. The Black Eyed Peas will keep it funky fresh, y'all. And we won't stop until we get y'all, say yeah.
Drop hot, be my daily operation. Gotta put in work in this crazy occupation. Gotta keep it moving, that's the motivation. Gotta ride the waves and keep a tight relation with my team. Keep it moving and doing it right. Up in the lab every day till daylight. That's the way things move in this monkey business.
We took an old samba song and remixed
My skin like that.